What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and this one will break down what's going on with SPY, Tsla, Nvda, the QQQ, and many tickers out there. Talk about what the technicals are telling us and what data just came out and how the data is affecting the market so far. But before I break anything down about all this information, I do have to mention a couple of things real quick. Firstly, I am not a financial planner, so take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. And finally, don't forget about the Webull link. The offer ends very soon. If you deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. Anyways, now let's talk about the market, what's going on with all these different tickers, what's going on with the data. So the data came out this morning at about 8:30 a.m. Eastern time, and we saw the market pop initially, then come right back down, and we're very flat right now on SPY. We're down about 0.14% in the pre-market. We also have Tesla, which is very flat. It's only up like 0.6%, and the market is still super flat right now. Most of these stocks are only like up 0.2%. They're down, 0.1%, very flat because the data was very mixed. Now, what data was mixed? Well, we had the unemployment rate that just came out. This was only 3.6%, a little bit lower than the previous reports, a little bit lower than the forecast of 3.7%. This would be a negative catalyst for the stock market because we want a higher unemployment rate. That's what the stock market wants based off what the Fed said. The Fed also wants this, and if we don't get a higher unemployment rate, the Fed could be incentivized to be more hawkish. So this was a bad piece of data for the markets. This could have caused some downside, but we also had some good pieces of data that could help the market push to the upside. That's going to be the non-farm payrolls. This was only 209,000 versus the consensus of 225,000 and a forecast of 250,000. What does this mean going forward? Well, when you look at the payrolls, they only rose by 209,000 in June. That's less than expected. And this is, once again, good for the bulls in the market. So this was a good piece of data that came out overall. So very mixed data. Some things were not that great. Other things were just not uh, bad either. Very mixed. Futures were very unchanged as well. They didn't really change much. They were just looking forward for the Friday jobs report. And so far, that gives us an indication that we could see some sideways price action, at least going forward for the day. Then looking at other pieces of data, we had the labor force participation rate as expected. The hourly earnings did go up just a little bit, but it's not really keeping up with inflation, in my opinion. And overall, things are still looking decent so far, very mixed data. And the question is, how is the market going to respond? What is the market going to do? Well, right now, we're approaching about, at the time I'm recording this, like about 9 o'clock a.m. And so far, the market is just trying to hold up. SPY is only down 0.02%. Very flat, very sideways. It just traded sideways the entire time in the pre-market. We got more volatility once the data dropped, but since then it's just been pretty flat. And there isn't really much going on. So what I'm going to be basically doing is watching to see how we react to some of these resistance levels. We're going to be watching, can SPY try to get above this 440 area? If it manages to do so, once again, we're going to be watching this 442 resistance next. If it manages to get above 442, then it has the potential to fill this gap all the way up here to about 44 in the 443s, and then it could pump all the way up to 443.8 in those higher levels we saw from before. If it gets a rejection, right, you're going to be watching support down here, the next support zone in the pre-market. The pre-market low is around this like 438.64 level, so watch that as support. If that fails us, there's 438 and then the 437.06 support. Then the mid 436s is going to be coming after that if that ends up failing. What do I think is going to happen? Well, it looks very choppy, very sideways so far. There's not really a clear direction at all in the pre-market. We're just going back and forth. We might see the same thing for today, but I do think at the very end of the day, we might get like a pump in the market. Could close a little bit green or like very flat, right? That's what I'm basically anticipating, a flat/green day. But I think it's going to be very sideways, at least to start us off. Tesla's looking very similar. Tesla got a very nice pump in the pre-market. I think some news may have just dropped for Tesla. This thing's actually starting to pump a little bit. Tesla has some more relative strength now, but the question is, will Tesla try to continue to hold? Currently, Tesla's at about 278.6 in the pre-market, so it's doing a little bit better. Some news may have just come out. I'm going to be watching Tesla very carefully because yesterday Tesla was showing some weakness. Today it's starting to show some strength. If Tesla could not just hold above 278, but get above 280 and manage to hold that, it has the potential to push up to this pre-market area that we made. We have some resistance very close to about 282. If we get above that, then we're going to be watching this thing try to push up for about 284, which is where we have this unfilled gap. It's going to go for this gap, especially if we manage to hold above like 280. That's going to be a big indication of it. And if Tesla fails to hold the gap, hold above like gap resistance, for instance, it's going to come all the way down to about this 276.71 area. So watch that very carefully as its support. If that fails, if it rejects below that, then you're going to be watching 275 flat. If that fails, there's 272.88, and then 270 comes below that. So watch support and resistance very carefully. But what do I think is going to happen to Tesla? So far, it's showing some strength in the pre-market. Typically, what happens is Tesla pops a lot during the market open, then it comes right back down. And I think Tesla's going to have a very sideways day, a nice pop and open, come right back down, push up again, and continue to trade sideways for some time before it starts pushing maybe near the end of the day. I think we could get a push up near the end and try to get a green close for Friday. Because we were kind of red for Thursday, we might see Tesla make an attempt to rebound a little bit. But just to be safe, I just want to remind you guys that Tesla has been trading a little bit flat. It's looking a little bit weaker so far, so it might not be able to push up very hard. And from a technical standpoint, it did drop more yesterday during the after hours, so I'd still be very careful with Tesla. There is a risk of the overall trend turning bearish, but for now, I do think it's going to make an attempt to close very flat, at least for as of right now. That's what I'm seeing for Tesla. For Apple, real quick, there's not much going on. If you're bullish on Apple, you want to see this thing get above 192, break above that, then we have potential to push up to about 194. Now, can Apple actually do this? Well, so far it's holding up, but it is getting stopped by resistance around this 192.5 area. Could Apple try to get above 192? It is a possibility, but we're currently still fighting resistance in this zone, so we're going to be watching that carefully. If it breaks below 191.38, that's the support holding it up during the pre-market. It's going to come all the way down, in my opinion, to about this 190.7 area, and then potentially 190.5, and below that, it's going to come down to 189.2 and potentially 188.5. I'm in the middle of Apple. This is a little bit, excuse me, this is a little bit green in the uh, pre-market right now. It's still trying to hold up. It's very, very sideways, still not really doing a whole lot. So we're just going to watch. It looks very choppy for now. It might just remain very sideways for the majority of the day. For the triple Q, it's the same thing. Very sideways, got a very nice pop in the morning before coming right back down. If it manages to break above this 50 EMA, we have the potential to see this thing try to hold 368. If it manages to do so, you're going to be watching this thing make its way closer to about 370. If it breaks 370, I could see this thing flying to about 372. That is also another possibility. We also have this unfilled gap all the way up here from the pre-market. I think it's going to try to fill this small gap right here around 370, but I don't know if it's going to make its way up to 372. If it breaks down, just hypothetically, you're going to be watching 366, then 364.5, then 363, and then the lower levels below that. I don't think it's going to drop that hard. I think it's going to be very sideways. I think it's going to get a push up, though, and try to fill this gap up here around 370 first. Then we might see it just trade a little bit sideways and still close kind of green. That's what I'm leaning towards. I think most of the market's going to try to close kind of green. Nvda, same thing with Nvda. We have this unfilled gap. I think we just came very close to it during the pre-market. As long as we hold above the 50 EMA, there's a chance that Nvda could pump for about 426 for today. I still anticipate a somewhat green close, but if it does end up breaking down, you're gonna be watching support at this like four. This is around like 416. If that fails, let's watch 413.5, then potentially 409 and then 405. I don't think it's going to drop that hard. I think it's going to be very choppy today as well, but then get an attempt to push up to about 426. So we're going to be watching the pre-market high very carefully for Nvidia. Last but not least, looking at like Meta, for example, Meta is still trying to hold up, but it is fighting this 50 EMA. If it breaks above this, we could see Meta make an attempt to go a little higher, but I would still be very careful with it because it is still stuck between these EMAs in a way. If it holds above the 50, it has potential to push up to about 298. We could see it try to make an attempt all the way up there. 295, then potentially 298. If it breaks down, we have major support around this 289 area now because it did break below 290 in the pre-market, which is a sign of weakness. So very mixed technicals on Meta. It has been slowing down a bit. We might see this thing slow down a little bit more and maybe test the 200 one more time and then try to bounce off of it around this like 289, 288 area. And like I said before, we could try to get an intraday push up on Meta, make its way up to about 295, then slow down a little bit and get one more push up at the very end of the day and try to close a little bit green. That's what typically happens on days after we have like those red Thursdays. We tend to do a little bit better for Friday. For Google, it's the same thing, very, very mixed. It may be very sideways throughout the majority of this day, but it could switch directions later on. If it turns bullish, you want to see it get above 121 and start pushing for this gap fill around this like 123 zone. If it ends up turning bearish, you're going to be watching 119 and 117 if it breaks below 120. For now, just remain calm, cool, and collected, guys. That's what I have for this one. So just get ready. And I will see you guys very soon for the next video. The market to the moon is long term is still incredibly bright. And peace out.